few tricks that I like, and I want to share them with you. So please use them, use what I'm doing, modify it, make it your own, but hopefully you'll find it useful. Now, since I can't hear you all, I'm not sure what level everybody's at. I mean, if everybody already knows how to do a document and we just want to dive into the more advanced things, you know, maybe Heather you can pop a message in and say, we can take a poll and see where everybody's at, but I'm going to start on the basis that not everybody's done this. And I'm going to try and get this done, like Heather said, not as quickly as possible, but show my little part and then leave room for questions, because there are little things that are tricky to do, and I want to be able to guide you along that way as well. So welcome. I've got the two screens open, so if it is too small, let me know. I prefer to have both because then you can see my template that I'm working from, which I created a fake eval, and then you can see Practice Perfect and sort of see how I work the two of them. If it's too small, pop it in the chat, and then I will just use one screen at a time. So usually what I do, and if I've ever built a document for you, or even if you're going to build it on your own, the best place I find to start is to build a map. And that means you usually have a template that you're already using, and it's probably done up in Word. If you don't have one, maybe it's done in PDF and not in a Word format. Even if you do just a basic map like I did here, just to put it out in Word so you have that map there, you will find it so helpful. So all I've done, there's some extra things in here, but this is just the basics. Like I've got my title, I've got my fields that I want in here. It doesn't have to be anything special. It's a good place to start. Because once I've done that, then what I like to do is I like to number things. And you will definitely see how this all comes together. I'd like to number things because when you start building documents, and if you have more than one document in your document area, you could have hundreds of fields. How are you going to know which fields go with which document? And that's where my numbering convention kind of came up. So with each field that I have, each field has a number. So for example, I somehow lost my controls here. Heather, I'm not able to draw anymore.
Oh, is the draw feature not actually working?
It's really odd, yeah. No?
I can see you highlighting.
See if I can use a spotlight, maybe. All right, I might just have to use a spotlight. Sorry, guys. Hopefully you can see my spotlight.
I can see. Can you guys see a little dot moving on the screen there?
Kind of looks like a laser pointer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So the main thing that I like to do when I'm looking at the document, other than creating my map, is you want to think ahead. And you probably have 1 or 2 documents, maybe 3 documents you want to build for your clinic. And 9 times out of 10, the first part of the document, which would be sort of this area here where you've got the client name, date of birth, age, it's basic things. You probably always want that on every document. And then the last part of the document, which would be the signature and thank you and et cetera. Those areas are probably going to be on every single document you build. What's going to be different is you're going to be popping out the middle section, you know, the history, the tests, other data that you need. So when you're building documents, how it works in Practice Perfect is a document is created in sections. So I like to take my document and break it down into sections, and specifically break it down into sections that I can use again in another document, so I'm not rebuilding and reinventing the wheel. So I'm going to look at my documents, if it's possible, because it may not be possible in your situation. How can I break this document down so I can reuse these sections over and over again? So I would give the document a number. So this is my very first document, so I'm going to call it document 1. And then I start breaking the sections down, and I break them down. I usually do them by 10, so 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, etc. So my first section will be section 10. And then that's where you come in, and when you're numbering the fields, they start at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when you're using the numbering convention, you can see here for date of birth, I've numbered it document 1, section 10, field 1. And I continue on that format in each section. When I go to my next section, which is history, I want to break that out separately because maybe in my next document it's not going to be history, it's going to be something else. When I do my numbering, I still use document 1, section 20 now, because this is a completely different section, and field 5. So this may not make sense right now, but once I start building and you start seeing how it fits in, it will definitely all fall into place. And if it doesn't fall into place, that's when you can let me know, and then I can start, you can start peppering me with questions and I can fill in those blanks for you. So this is what I would do first. I would do my map first. And you can do it as simple as do your map section by section. I'm going to build my first section first. You don't have to build the entire document all at once. I wouldn't even recommend that. I would build it section by section. So when we go over to my other screen, we are going to see my practice perfect. And the area you're going to go into is housekeeping, and then it's called customized documents. And I don't know if any of you are aware, but we do have a learning center where you can find videos on how to do this. So if I am going too fast, or if it doesn't, this doesn't answer your questions, those videos may help. And if those videos don't help, I should also tell you, if you want to set up a call with me or any of my other lovely colleagues in support, we will help you with getting started with this. So we are always here to help you along your journey. So if this isn't enough for you, you need more, please let us know. So in this area, housekeeping, customized documents, it's broken down into areas. You've got something called document names, your fields, your sections, and your tables. So each document is given a document name. Each document name or document is made up of sections. It can be minimum of 1 section, maximum of 100, however you want to do that. Within each section, they are built up of fields and or tables. So that's sort of how that all falls together. So let's start out by, I'm going to create a couple of fields first, and then we'll pop them in a section, and then we'll pop them in the document, and then we'll see what it looks like, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to do a couple of different fields. I'm going to do fields where the software is automatically going to data fill. I'm going to do fields where you can use drop-down menus, checkboxes, and where you can put free text in, and talk about how all of those work as well. So here's fields. Now, I have a ton of fields. In the bottom left corner, you can see there's 506 fields. So if I just started building fields any way I wanted to, it would be really hard for me to figure out which field is which. And you can see by looking at some of these fields, so there's this field here. Hopefully everybody can see this. If you can't, please let me know if it's too small, and I will focus just on the one screen. This field here doesn't have my numbering convention. It has a different one. They're just using one number in front of it, sort of, I think, to represent the section. So there are other ways of doing this. So within each field, as you build it, I'm going to explain what all these different columns do for you, because they all do different things. So let's dive on in here. So I'm going to click the green plus sign, as in anything else in Practice Perfect. That's how you create something new. And in the number column, it automatically gives it a number. So you can write that down if you like and make note of that. I usually don't use that number because I've created my own numbering convention. But again, you've got that option as well. It will not allow you to do your map before you build. You'll have to do your map as you're building. So if you prefer to do your map as you go along, you can use the number that Practice Perfect automatically creates. The very first column is the description column. This is just for you. And this is where we're going to put in our numbering convention. So I'm going to start with going 01 for my document, 10 for my section, 01 for my field, and I'm calling this date of birth. The next field is called caption. And I just tabbed over and it pushed my cursor over to that next field. It copies everything that I put in description. Anything that's in caption is what's going to appear on your document. Now, I don't want my little mapping numbering convention to appear on my document. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can just start typing the name of your field. You can click home on your keyboard and just delete out the numbering convention so that you just have the name of your field. A few different ways of handling that. Now, the next column is the type. What type of field is this? And we have a ton of different types of fields. So the first ones, they're sort of broken down into sections. You can see type, you can see client. If I scroll down, it'll say payer, and then some things related to the progress note. The ones that say type are literally that. They are things that you're going to type into. Do I want to create a drop down, a single line? Do I want to type a whole bunch of paragraphs, etc.? This is the date of birth. This is something that I've already probably put in Practice Perfect. I don't want to have to put in again. So I'm going to tell the software, no, I want you to go to client, which is a different section we can see here, and I'm going to choose birth date. So what this will do now is whatever is in the client's birth date field, it's going to pull forward that information for me in that field, so I don't have to do it. So when you look on this list, this tells you all the fields that's under client, payer, and anything that says after payer, which is related to your progress note. It will data fill all this information. So we've got client first name, last name, birth date, gender, date of injury, date of assessment. So lots of options where you can get the software pull through. The next column is related to drop-down text. So if you're making a drop-down menu, which we will do, you'll put the information in here. The default value, again, for drop-down text. Carry forward. So if I know that this is my eval and then my re-eval, I want a certain field from my eval to carry forward to my re-eval, I can have it do that. I can say, carry forward from last document or carry forward from this document. So you can be very specific on how that works, and it's a really handy feature. The next column I love, and it is do not print it blank. So this means that if this is a field, any field, it can be one where the software data fields as well. If there's nothing in client date of birth, or I don't type anything into this field, if I check this little box off here, then it won't print this field out when I print this eval out to send to a physician or whoever I want to send the eval to. So it's a really nice way of making your document not look like it's missing information. The next field is kind of interesting. It's called width pixels. And this is used specifically, and if you look at my document, especially with date of birth, age, and gender, these are the fields that we're going to be building. I want them all in the same line. So this is when width pixels comes into play, because we're going to have to give them all sort of how big they're going to be. We're going to tell the software how big they're going to be. And that's what this does. So width pixels, the maximum is 700 width pixels. And it's usually about 100 width pixels per inch. Now, I would never push a document to 700. I'd probably push it as far as 600. So in this instance where I have 3 fields that I want to spread off across one line, I'm going to divide those 3 fields by 600 to see what are my width pixels going to be, because I want them all to look pretty. And this really is helpful if you have like columns that you want to make, checkboxes you want in pretty columns. This is how you make things look pretty. If I just have one field, this can be as big or as small as you like. If you make it smaller than the text you're putting in it, it will cut the text off. So that's where you spend a lot of time with documents, is formatting things. So anywho, I'm going to say this is 200 because I'm doing 3 fields all in one line. The next column has to do with when you're using a large paragraph. So we're not using that right just yet, so we can disregard it. And then your label column is, what do you want the caption to look like? Do you want it to be bolded, underlined, or italics? In this case, I would like it to be bolded, so I'm gonna click off bold. So I've built my first field. Now I'm gonna build a couple more. And if anybody has any questions about any of these columns, please let me know, because I want to dive into some other fields and not take up so much time. The client, we do have client age, so it'll data fill that for me, which is really nice, so I don't have to type that in. Again, it's going to be width pixel 200, and I want to bold this little guy. And it just starts to become very repetitive at this point. As you can see, I've already done my map, so I don't really have to think about many things, which is nice. When you automatically do the map, you can just go ahead and start typing things in, and it makes things go a little bit faster. Alrighty, so we've built my 3 fields. Now, I have made mention of diagnostic codes, and diagnostic codes are a special beast unto their own because you put them in Practice Perfect. They are created as a table. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create the table which I've numbered as 0, 1, 10, 04, and then I can just pop that table into my section, and whatever diagnostic codes I put in Practice Perfect, it's automatically going to pop in for me. So tables aren't built-in fields, they have their very own section. So here's my table section, and it's sort of set up the same as fields. So again, it'll give you a number. The description is the same as when we were building with the field. So this is just for me, and this is where I put in my numbering convention. Call it diagnostic codes. The next column type, what type of field is this? Is this a table I'm going to build from scratch? If it is, you use UserDefined. Is this a table, a goal table? If it is, I choose my goals. But in this case, it's diagnostic codes, so I'm going to choose diagnostic codes. The first column heading is only used when you're building your own table, so we're using a pre-built table. And then a label, this is the title. Do you want to give it a title? So I'm going to call it diagnostic codes. And the label is the same as the fields. We want it to be bolded. I do. If you want something else, you can pop that in there. Okay, so I've built my 4 fields for my section. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to build my section. So I come into the area of housekeeping, customize documents and sections, and I'm going to build my section. Again, clicking the green plus sign to create something new. And I've labeled my section as 10. So I use the document number 01, because if I have more than one document, I need to know where this section belongs to, and section 10. I don't have to put anything else in there if I don't want to. If you want to give it a title, you can. Client info. The display caption is, do you want it to say anything fancy? And we can say, you can put a title in or you can leave it blank. It's completely up to you. And again, the label, how do you want it to look? Now this is a little different. It's one different step than fields. I've created my section, and now I'm going to come up to the icon bar, and there's this weird little icon that says section field table. This is where I'm going to click on this icon to bring in the fields that are in my Practice Perfect into this section. I use the section to organize the fields to make them look pretty. And over on the right here is where I see all of my 504 fields. So you can imagine that if you didn't use some sort of numbering convention, it's going to organize them alphabetically. So I would literally have to be hunting and pecking for date of birth, age, and gender. And honestly, who has time for that? I sure don't, and I'm sure you don't either. So you'll see with my little trick, here all my fields line up one after the other. And all I do is go boom, 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 and pop them in, and I'm done. Otherwise, again, you'll be hunting and pecking. So I click on the field I want to add in, click the button Add Field, and I kind of keep going until I hit the end of my section. Now I know I have another one that is a table, so it's down below. So the tables aren't mixed up with the fields, and I just click Add Table, and away we go. So we've placed them in a section. This is how we're making it look pretty. Now, as per my document, date of birth, age, and gender all need to be on the same line. So there's these little checkboxes here, same line as previous. This is where you check them off. So date of birth is the beginning of the line. I want age to be on the same line as date of birth, and I want gender to be on the same line as date of birth. So I check off that box, and that puts them all on the same line. Once I've built my section, I say OK, and now we can pop it into a document. So we come into Housekeeping and Customize Document and Document Names, and I click my little green plus sign to create my new document. The description field is what will appear on your document name. So you may or may not want to put 01, your numbering convention. I'm just going to for the sake of this, but probably if I was building it for you as your clinic, I would not have that 01 in there. And then document type. What type of document is this? And in this case, I'm going to call it an assessment. That's it. We've built our first document and our first section. So now let's take a look at it so you can see what it looks like. And this is where the fun begins. You're bouncing in between these sections and what the document looks like to make everything look pretty. So a little trick, some of you may know this. There's a little red X here. And this little red X will take me back to different screens I was on. So I don't have to go to my client listing, what have you. I can just click the little red X and go back and forth. And that's usually what I use when I'm flipping through my documents. let's create a document for Jim here. So I'm going to click on Jim. I can do this from the client list, or I can do this from here. I'm going to click on the two little pieces of paper, which is your activity by document, the same area where you're scanning documents in. It's the same area where you are going to see the evals, re-evals, discharge, and where you scan your documents in as well. We click the green plus sign. Here you see our pre-built documents. And then below this is where you're going to see all the customized documents. You can see all these great customized documents that we built. And I've got one here called eval. So I'm going to click on this little guy here, and this opens up my eval. And didn't pull through anything that I did. Do you know why? I didn't add the section to my document. I put my document name in, but I didn't add my section in. So if you don't add the section into the document, even though you've built it, you're not going to get any data. So I'm going to go back to housekeeping, customize documents, document names, click on my document. And that weird little icon that we used for our sections, we used for this. We click on this little guy here, and we find our section that we built, 0110, and add it in. Now, anything that's in that section will now appear on my document. So that's, and the same thing would happen is if you built a field but didn't add it into a section. When you go to view it on the document, you're not going to see anything. And so, go back and check your section to see if the field's actually in there. So here we go. So as you can see, I added that in, and voila, you can see date of birth, age, gender. Where's my diagnostic codes? Well, I'm going to presume that just because we want some added fun, this little guy doesn't have any diagnostic codes. So let's go into our incident tab, statistics, and he doesn't. So let's pop one in here, nice and quick. There we go. Go back into our activities by document, open this little guy up, and there's our diagnostic codes. Now this is not the end. This isn't where, when you're building a document, this is great, I can see everything here, but where I want to see what it looks like is when I preview it. So once you've gotten to this point, you're going to click the printer icon and you're going to click preview, because I need to see what it looks like when it prints out. And this is what this little guy will look like. So if I wanted to lessen the space in date of birth between date of birth and age, that's where I fiddle around with my width pixels. So just as a quick example, let's say I think this is too much space. I don't like this. So I'm going to close out of this. And I'm going to go to housekeeping, customize documents, and fields. Now, this is where your map comes into play. If you were working on multiple documents, oh my gosh, what field is it? Well, we can tell by my map it's 0110, 01, that's, and which I could type in here, 0110, 01. Ta-da, there's my date of birth. Well, my width pixel is 200. It was too much space. Let's do 150. Let's see what that looks like. So I'll click my little red X, takes me back to my document. Click my little printer icon, click preview, and you can see that it's kind of squished age over a little bit. So that's how the width pixel works, is that it sort of moves the fields around to make them look good. All right, any questions at all before I go along? You type that into the chat if you have any questions. I'll continue talking. If there are questions, I'll see them in the chat. Heather can answer them, or I can address them as I'm talking. Did I put you all to sleep? I hope not. I know this isn't very exciting, but hopefully it's interesting at least. Okay, so let's dive on to the next part of our document. We're going to build section 20. We're just going to follow the same process. I'm going to build a free text field. I'm going to build some checkboxes, and I'm going to build some drop-down menus. And hopefully that will be a little bit more exciting than what I just did. So we'll go into customize documents, and I'm going to start in fields. And I go ahead and I'm going to start with my next field. So I click my green plus sign and I type in my numbering convention 012005. The name of the field is history. I am going to put my caption in as history. Well, thank you. The map is a helpful hint, believe me. It comes in handy more than you'll know. History is where I want them to type in a ton of text. So I'm going to use type multiple text. And this allows them to type in as much text as they need. If they don't type any history in, I'm going to check off this box. Do not print if blank. I want history to stretch out as far as possible. If you only wanted it to do half a page, they only had half a page to type in the history, this would be 300. If you wanted it to do as far as possible, I would use 600. Again, you could stretch to 7 if you like. I like to use 600 just in case when I'm formatting things, I have that extra 100 to sort of play around with and push things over. If you push it past 700, what I find is that when you go to open up the document, it pushes it over a few inches and looks really funny. So I'll see if I can replicate that. Let's say if I do 725, I'll show you what that means. Hopefully that will do it. And we're going to bold this guy. Okay, let's do a couple more fields here. Let's do a drop-down menu. So my special test is going to be a drop-down menu. So 0, 1, 20, 0, 6, and this is my special test. So I want to give them some options. Drop-down menus are really only helpful if they can only choose one option. If you need them to choose more than one option, drop-down menus aren't the way to go. I would recommend checkboxes. But I want them to answer either yes or no, so this drop-down menu will work. So I will say drop-down. I will put their options in, yes, and then you separate them with a comma. No spaces needed. You put in the options that they have. If you want it to default to something like choose an option, you can put that in there, or you can leave it blank and it'll just remain blank. And then this guy, I want it to stretch across the line. We can just use this as 600, and I want it to bold the special test. Next, I'm going to build some checkboxes. So, name of test performed. This is not part of the checkbox, but this is the beginning of the checkbox. So, I am going to put in, it's what they call a label. It's a way of putting a title in. So it means there's nothing for anybody to data fill. This is just a line of text. So it's going to be called a label. And to make my life easy, the label is going to be on a line all by itself. I'm just going to stretch this to 600 as well, and I'm going to check off bold. Now I'm going to build my checkboxes. So the first checkbox is test 1, 0, 1, 20, 0, 8. This is going to be test 1. And this, then my type is going to be a checkbox. And with pixel. Now, I've got 3 across the line again, depending on how close or how small I want them to be. Maybe why don't we put these guys at 100 and see what it looks like. So let's do that. 0, 1, 20, 09. This is test 0, 2. So as I said, if you have done your map already, things can go very fast or very slow, depending how your fingers work. Today my fingers are working slow, and this is going to be at 100. Now, if I don't want all the checkboxes to appear, only the checkboxes that they check off, then you can check off the box do not appear if blank. But if you leave them, in some cases you want the person reviewing the document to see all the choices that there were. So I'll do some that then you will leave them as show them all. So again, it just depends on how you want your document to look. But the nice thing is you have those options and how you can set that up. Alrighty, so we've built our last section. Or not our last section, another section. So I'm going to come into sections, and now I'm going to build this section. So it's 0, 1, 20. I'm just going to call it history. And I want it to have a title too, because I want it to look pretty on the document. We'll call it history, we'll bold this, and don't forget, once you put the name of the section in, you click this weird icon, and now we're going to add the fields in. So again, if you didn't do the numbering convention, you're hunting and pecking. I'm going to see all the fields that I haven't used in this section. So it's even including the fields that I used in section 10, but I don't want them. So I'm going to start at section 20, and this is why, hopefully you're seeing the method to my madness, why I sort of do that, and I'm just popping all my 20s in because I know I want every single one of those guys in there. And then I just have to be a little particular on like which ones do I want to appear on the same lines. And we know that these checkboxes, we want them to appear on the same line. So this will be the beginning of the line, and check these guys off and then say okay. And now I'm going to come in, which I forgot to do last time, but this time I'm going to remember to add my section into my document, which appears here, and add that in and say okay. And now let's go take a peek at the document, and you'll be able to see how beautiful it looks. Oh, it's lovely. So here is my document. So now they have the ability to put information into the history, This is my drop-down menu. They can choose yes or no. They can check off the tests that are performed. So now if we go to do a print preview of this, now notice I didn't put anything in the history box. Can't remember if I checked it off to not appear or not. But you'll notice that now we get a title of history. The actual history doesn't appear because it didn't put any data in. My special test, my drop-down menu says yes. I checked off the test to not appear, so the only one that showed up was the one that I checked off. Now if I go back in and I can use my quick phrases over on the right side of the screen here to get some information into these free text fields. So don't forget that, because this will be huge for the therapist. If I go to print this document again, now that history field will appear, text is in there. And we've got what sort of looks like a document, almost. It's getting there, it's looking pretty. Does anybody have any questions at all? We've got 2 more sections to do, and they'll probably take me about 5 minutes. So anything that I've done so far, everything making sense? Amazing. I'll give you a couple of minutes if you have a question. Again, I'll keep talking, and if it pops up, either Heather or I will answer. Let's talk about building your own table. This is the fun part. It's not really intuitive, but once you see how it works, it kind of makes sense. So I have a table over here, and it's called Daily Beverages. And how tables work is the very first column you'll get free when you build your table. So you don't have to worry about that. We will find a way to get that information in there. Any columns after that, you need to build as a field before you build your table. That's the tricky part. It took me a while to figure that one out. So before I can build this table, I need to build, I've got 3 columns, I have 4 columns, the description, but this comes free with the table. So all I have to build is my 3 columns, amount, kind, and time of day. I also give the table its own number. So I call the table its own number and then give each field its own number. So let's go in and do this. So I'm going to go to Housekeeping and Customize Documents and Fields. Click my friend, the green plus sign, and I'm going to build just my columns. So 0, 1, 30, 1, 2. And I want them to put text in these fields. When you're building fields for tables, literally, this is all you need. Anything else doesn't come into play. You can't format them in the column at all. I can't make them bigger or smaller from this area. I do that from the actual table. So it's really easy. You're just coming in, and if you have your map all built out, you're just putting in your table. Did I spell that right? Sorry, putting in your fields. And now we'll go make the magic happen. That's it. That's all I need. I needed 3 columns. They're built as fields. They're single line text because I want them to be able to type information in. And now I'm going to go back into tables, and we're going to build our own user-defined table. So I'm going to click the green plus sign, and I've given this table a number, 0, 1, 30, 11, and I can put in my name so I know what it is. I'm leaving it as user-defined. The first column heading, this is the one that I said you get for free. So you're going to put in description or whatever you want to call it. And then if you want to give the table a title, then you'll pop in that title. Spell it properly. And click the bold. I want to bold it. Now, this is another one where you get to use the weird icon. So I'm going to come in, and I'm going to click that weird icon, and I'm going to build my table. So this is what you get. Doesn't look like much at all. And there's no way of doing this. You can put the columns in first, or you can build your first column first, whatever works for you. So in my first column, I have a few beverages that I've listed. So in order to data fill my first column, I click this little green plus sign, and I put in what I want in here. Oh, looks like I can't do that. I've got my French on. Sorry about that. Pop and water. Now, tables aren't fluid. So whatever you build in here, that's what's going to appear. If they only data fill one field, one line in the table, the whole table is going to appear. So if you want a table that's more fluid, where they can add more, or just whatever they put in appears, then you would build this probably as their own individual fields and not as a table. I hope that made sense. Now I'm going to build my columns. And this is where it's a little strange. So I come up to this area where it says please select field. Now, because we've used a numbering convention, we've made life easy on ourselves. I can start typing in what those numbers are, and oh, look at that, it finds them for me. So here's my first column amount, which I built as a field. If you click the drop-down menu, you'll see all the fields that you'd be able to pull in. And I click create, and it adds it in as a column. And now I can find my other ones here, or I can use my drop-down menu. But again, I've already got those numbers in there. It just makes my life easy. There. Now, if I wanted my columns to be bigger or smaller, I have the ability to do that. And you're just dragging this line here. And this is making the columns bigger or smaller. That's it. We're done. We built a table. Now, the next part we have to do is pop the table into the section. There's one field that I have added in and underneath the table, and it's a blank line. I find that sometimes, and this is just personal preference, sometimes things are too squished together, and I want to give it a little bit of space. So what I have found that works really well is to build a blank line. So click my green plus sign, and I even put in that I built a blank line so that I know what that is. So I've named it, numbered it 01, 30, 15, and I literally call it blank. My little trick is I leave the caption blank because I don't want anything to appear on the document. And I found if you leave it as single line text, then it looks like something somebody has to data fill. So someone might type something in there and it'll appear in the document. But if you put it as a label, wow, it just shows up as a blank line, which is really nice and gives it a little bit of space. So let's build this last section here. So come in here, I'm going to build my last section. So 01, 30, and this is beverages. I can give it a title if I want. I can leave it blank. Again, completely up to you. Click that really weird icon again. Fun thing is, all I do is I pull in my table. I go ahead and I might have to scroll down a bit because I got to find my blank line. That's it. Done. Now we have to remember to pull that section into the document. Where's my document? Pop in my section. And if we go and look at the document, if I can get there, there we go. Here you will see your lovely table. So this is where you'll put something in. Again, you don't see that blank line underneath. That blank line is only showing up in the section, which is really nice. But when you go, and it won't be until we print something out, obviously, I put something beneath it, and that's what my table looks like. Regardless of whether I've data filled one field, two fields, it's going to show up. If I don't put anything in the fields, the nice thing to remember about tables too, if you don't put anything in the table at all, when you go to print it out, the table will not appear. So that's why sometimes I put tables in their own sections, because you may want to reuse them over again. If they're a table that you're not going to reuse over, then you can keep them all in one section. But again, just keep in mind, how can I reuse these things? Last but not least, and then we can open it up for any questions if anybody has, is my last thing is the goals table. And I wanted to show you this because I wanted to show you how easy the goals are. It's built as a table. It's already a pre-made table. So your life is easy. So I've already put a number in here. All I do is I say either incident goals with all goals or incident goals without previously met goals. It's that easy. Give it a title. Pop it into a section. Pop it into your document. And you are done. So as you can see, as you start building things, you get much faster and things click along. The first document that you're probably going to build, depending how big it is, if it's a couple of pages, you're probably looking at somewhere between 4 to 6 hours, depending how big it is. As you build more and more, it will get easier and easier. So we don't have any goals in for this guy, of course. So let's pop one in here. And short-term and long-term. And now when we go to print out the document, they don't appear. Well, let's make sure that Carrie actually put it on the document, because I might have forgot to do that. Wow, I did. Nobody yelled at me. Come on, guys. I'm not on the ball. There we go. So there's my goals. So when I print it out, now my goals will appear. Ta-da! And that's the document that we built today.
Awesome.
Any questions?
So guys, I know that now you can see why Carrie is the expert in creating custom documents, because she moves around very quickly. She's very adverse to knowing what she's doing. So that was probably a lot of information for some of you to watch, but I think if you watch this video a couple of times, I think it's really going to make sense. And at least this might actually make more sense to you as you're putting together documents. But we have lots of little tools for you. So this video is probably number one. And I'll just tell you that you can hire Practice Perfect, and Carrie is the person you would hire to build forms for you at the clinic. But the rate for that is about $100 a page when Carrie is hired to build those. So Carrie just gave you a free webinar to kind of take that over on your own. There is no limit to the number of forms and documents and templates that you want to build on your own. And the added bonus is Carrie and anyone else at support as well is available to you if you ever have any questions or need support. So in addition to this little webinar that we've done today, we also have a couple of training videos that breaks it down, part 1, part 2, I believe, for custom documents. And we also have some written instructions. Carrie, are you able to go to the help and then the learning center on your screen just to show, can you maybe show everybody how you get there when you're logged into Practice Perfect?
Absolutely. So if you want to go to your university, you go to help and then about. And under about, you're going to have some links. And our university is a link right here. So we can click on this link here and it should open up in your browser. And hopefully.
And it'll just take a second probably, but it should take you to a link on our website, and that website, there's a Canadian and a US version for different videos, but those are all the videos that you're seeing right now that Carrie is scrolling through. All of these that we're doing right now are actually in a section called webinars, and it'll be on the right-hand side of the screen when you scroll down. Carrie is about to circle the 2 specific videos under the documentation section, and those are the ones that basically break out what she did today as well. It's in addition to what she did. Carrie did a much more advanced session for us today, so I would say this is like the 3rd one that you would definitely want to keep in mind and watch. So, and then in addition to that, if you prefer to have things in writing, we also have some written instructions that we can send you. So you can always ask for that through myself, through Carrie, through the support team. If you lose this link, if you can't remember how to get there, just reach out and we'll make sure that you can find your way there.
I noticed there's a few questions. Is it okay if I answer them, Heather?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Attendee 8 has asked, can you modify documents that we've created? I'm going to presume you might be, let me erase that. Now I got my drawing working. It's very exciting. I believe you might be referring to these pre-built documents, PTOT, cervical, lumbar, and re-eval, and discharge. If that is correct, these ones that you have in here now cannot be changed, but we can load in customized versions of these for you so that you could change them if you wanted to. You just have to reach out to support and ask them, say, look, your pre-built documents that you have, we love them. We want the customized versions so we can make changes. Did that answer your question? Hopefully. I know you can't speak, so if you can just type in there and let me know. If you were talking about a document that we've built for you or I've built for you, you can always edit a customized document that's been created. We do load in the speech language pathology eval, and that is loaded in as a customized document. So if you have that document in your list, that you can go ahead and change up as much as you like.
And I will just add on to what Carrie said to that. Just keep in mind when you do make a modification, like let's say you built that speech eval documentation as a custom doc, and then 6 months later you decide that you're going to change the field name from DOB to date of birth. Just keep in mind, it's my understanding that it would actually change that field on your past documents as well. Is that correct, Carrie?
That is a very good point. Thank you for reminding me of that. Yes, it is. It's something that they are hoping to change, but any changes made, like if you remove a field or add a field, it will show up in documents even if they've been completed and signed. So usually what might happen is, and this is where it becomes important to build in sections, so that if you're using a document for a period of time and you want to change it, you're probably going to have version 2. And it might just be a field or 2 in one section that you have to change. So you create a version 2, you pull over all the sections that you've previously built, and then you're just editing that one section. And that's why I don't recommend, if you have a large document, you putting it all in one section. If you ever want to do edits, it does make life a little difficult. Thank you, Heather, for bringing that up.
Mm-hmm. Carrie, I don't have any other questions on my chat. There might be some separate ones directed just to you. I'm not sure. Do you still have more?
I don't have any other questions either.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So thanks, Carrie. That was awesome. And guys, this is going to be recorded. It should be loaded up on that webinars section probably within a day or two. And Michelle, who coordinated everyone's attendance today, she'll be sending you, I'm going to have her send you all a copy of the written instructions along with the links on how to get to the Learning Center and those 2 videos specifically that Carrie had circled on her screen a moment ago that are specifically for how to build your own custom documents. And if you have any questions ever along the way, of course, you know you can always reach out to us. Remember, help and about when you're logged in is probably the fastest way to get your contact information.
I see there's one more question that popped up. They wanted to
sure.
know how to find these videos on help, and I'd be happy to show you again. You want to go to the help menu in Practice Perfect, and then to about, the very first option. Once you're here, you will see underneath our lovely logo a whole bunch of options. The second option is University. You'll click on University, and that will then open up a page, as Heather said, depending on what region you're in, Canadian or US, that's applicable to you. I'm in Canada, so you can see the Canadian version here. And in the area that says documentation, and let me get my little pen out here, if it'll work. It seems to not want to work for me. It's off and on. Right here, it's 9.9 is what you're looking for.
And for those of you that can see the chat box, I think I just, hopefully I just sent it out to everybody on the chat box, but I just put the link up there for the Learning Center in case you want to copy it on your end, and also the email address to reach anyone at the support department as well. But you'll get something from Michelle for a follow-up today too. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we're 10 minutes early, so this is great. We're going to be able to end the session early. You're all back to work by 2 o'clock. Sorry about that. And what I'll do now, Carrie, you'll go ahead and end the meeting,
Sure.
and that'll disappear on everybody's screen. So thanks for attending, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. We know how busy you are. Really appreciate it.